So, imagine you hire a contractor, right?
Okay.
You want to renovate your kitchen. They show up on day one, they walk in, look at the space, and you just hand them a check for the entire $50,000.
Oh, wow. Before they've even picked up a hammer.
Exactly. Before they even do anything. What happens next?
Well, I mean, you've probably just made a terrible financial mistake.
Right. But according to this highly concentrated, nugget of wisdom that you shared with us today for this deep dive, it is not just a financial misstep. You haven't just lost leverage. You have completely destroyed the foundation of the work itself.
Yeah, you've dismantled the whole thing.
Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Usually you send us these massive stacks of dense articles or, sprawling research papers.
Pages and pages of notes.
Right. But today, you provided us with literally a single sentence.
Just one.
Just one. It is an Arabic proverb. Specifically, it's listed as proverb number 69 in the notes you sent over.
And it is a fascinating one.
It really is. So the original Arabic text reads, and I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I don't want to butcher it, but the English translation provided right below it is incredibly stark. It says, paying the wage in advance is what invalidates the work.
Yeah. And what's fascinating here is how these ancient proverbs function as essentially compressed data.
Compressed data. I like that.
Right, because long before behavioral economics was, a formal academic discipline.
Absolutely.
And long before we had fMRI machines to track brain chemistry and dopamine, human beings were constantly testing and observing these transactional mechanics.
We've been trading and working for a long time.
Exactly. A proverb like this is the result of centuries of trial and error in trade, in labor, and just basic human psychology, distilled into a dozen words.
It's like a massive multi-generational data set on human motivation, just packed into one sentence.
It really is.
And the vocabulary chosen in the translation you gave us carries a very, very specific weight. Paying the wage in advance is what invalidates the work. Yeah. It doesn't say paying in advance delays the work or complicates it.
Or degrades the quality.
Right. Though those things might obviously happen. It specifically uses the word invalidates.
Well, to invalidate something is to basically strip it of its functional force.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
Sure. It removes the underlying logic of the arrangement. The work doesn't just suffer. Its very reason for existing within that specific dynamic is erased. Think about the fundamental structure of a transaction.
Okay.
A wage is essentially a bridge built between a need and a fulfillment.
A bridge.
Right. On one side, you have the labor that must be done, the effort, and on the other side, you have the reward. The worker crosses that bridge through their effort.
So they have to walk across it to get the money.
Yes. But by handing over the wage before the work is done, you dismantle the bridge entirely.
You just teleport them to the other side.
You do. And the relationship instantly transforms from a mutual exchange governed by a shared timeline into something highly unbalanced.
Right, because one party holds all the value.
Exactly. And the other party is left holding an empty obligation. The whole structure just collapses under its own premature weight.
It's like sitting down to watch a complex 2-hour mystery thriller movie.
Oh, yeah.
You are right. You are tracking the clues. You are doing all the mental work because you want that payoff at the end.
You want the big reveal.
Right. But then in the first 5 minutes, someone just blurts out the ending.
The absolute worst.
They tell you exactly who the killer is and how they pulled it off. And once that resolution is handed to you up front,
the energy is gone.
Totally gone. The entire process of watching the rest of the film is invalidated. The tension that made the experience meaningful is just vanished.
You might still sit there, but you aren't really engaged in the journey anymore.
No, you're just staring at a screen. You're just waiting for it to be over.
And, the neurobiology behind that loss of tension is actually where this gets deeply scientific.
Really? How so?
Well, when we talk about motivation and incentive, biologically speaking, we're really talking about dopamine.
Okay, the reward chemical.
Right, but that's the misconception. We often think of dopamine as the chemical reward we get when we achieve something, like a prize.
Like when you cross the finish line and feel great.
Exactly. But neuroscientists have actually found that the highest spikes of dopamine occur in the anticipation of the reward.
Wait, really? The anticipation?
Yes. not just the receipt of it. Your brain releases dopamine to give you the physical and mental energy required to close the gap between where you are and the goal you want to reach.
So the anticipation is the actual fuel for the labor.
Precisely. The dopamine spike is strictly forward-facing. It pulls you toward the goal.
So if you get the reward early,
When you are paid in advance, your brain registers the reward. The goal has been achieved.
wow.
So the biological drive to earn it shuts off because the future goal is now a past tense reality.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, the brain just stops supplying the chemical fuel needed to push through the friction of hard labor.
Okay, wait, let me challenge that premise just a little bit. Is human nature always that strictly transactional? I mean, what about the concept of building trust or, paying it forward?
Okay, fair point.
Because in a lot of creative industries, say you are hiring a freelance software developer or a writer or a designer,
Right.
clients often pay a large sum, sometimes even 100% upfront.
Yes, they do.
And the logic there is that removing financial anxiety allows the creator to do their absolute best work without stressing about making rent.
That's the theory.
Shouldn't giving someone that security foster a deep sense of gratitude and goodwill that basically compels them to deliver an incredible product?
It is a very common approach, and it definitely stems from a desire to be accommodating and kind.
Yeah.
But we have to differentiate between relational security and transactional incentive.
Relational versus transactional.
Right. Relational security is what a salary or a long-term retainer provides. The worker knows they are safe over a long horizon, which allows them to relax and focus.
Right. They aren't worried about next month.
Exactly. But this proverb is specifically targeting the discrete transaction. We'll wage for a specific isolated job. When you apply full upfront payment to a discrete transaction, you run headfirst into the limits of gratitude.
Because gratitude isn't enough to actually get the code written or the house painted.
Exactly. Think about it. Gratitude is a retrospective emotion.
Retrospective, it looks backward.
Yes. It looks backward at what was given. You feel thankful for the money that was handed to you yesterday.
Right.
But labor requires a prospective drive. It requires looking forward at what must be earned today.
Oh, that's a huge distinction.
And gratitude fades remarkably fast when you are faced with the actual friction of a difficult task.
So when things get tough.
Right. If the developer hits a massive bug in the code or the writer faces some huge structural flaw in the narrative, the retrospective feeling of gratitude is rarely strong enough to push them through that frustration.
Because the brain is saying, well, I already have the money.
Exactly. Incentive, however, survives the friction because the reward is still out there on the horizon, actively pulling them forward.
Wow. That makes the phrase lacking the incentive from your source notes incredibly precise.
It really is.
Because the source specifically highlights that without that forward-facing pull, the worker may lack the incentive to complete the job, quote, properly or at all.
Properly or at all.
Yeah, it presents this two-pronged spectrum of failure.
Well, the proverb recognizes that invalidation doesn't manifest in just one monolithic way. The evaporation of incentive creates entirely different behavioral traps depending on the person and the situation.
Okay, let's unpack that. Let's look at the not at all end of the spectrum first, the total collapse.
Sure.
We see this play out constantly in the business world. Instead of a relatable but maybe overly simplistic example, like paying a neighborhood kid their full allowance before they rake the leaves.
Right, which never works. The kid just wanders off.
Exactly. They just walk away with the $20.
Yeah.
But consider how venture capitalists fund startup companies. Oh, that is a perfect example.
A founder pitches a brilliant idea and the VC decides to invest, say, $10 million.
But they almost never hand over the full $10 million on day one.
Never. Because they understand this proverb perfectly.
Yes, they do.
If they wire $10 million into the founder's bank account up front, they risk the exact not at all scenario.
Because the founder suddenly has the reward.
Right. They might go buy expensive office furniture, hire a bloated staff, or just lose that desperate, scrappy hunger required to actually build a profitable product.
The pressure is completely gone.
The obligation evaporates because the reward is secure. I mean, they might not literally run away with the money like the kid with the leaf rake, but the effort to build the core business stalls out completely.
Which is why venture capitalists use what is called milestone funding or tranches.
Tranches.
Right. They release $2 million for the prototype. When that is done, they release $3 million for user acquisition.
Oh, I see.
They keep the wage stationed firmly on the other side of the bridge. They maintain the gravity of the situation.
Exactly. The wage acts as a gravitational force. That unpaid capital is the gravity that keeps the founder anchored to the difficult details of building the company.
That makes total sense.
And that brings us to the second, perhaps more insidious risk the proverb outlines: the failure to complete the work properly.
The half-hearted execution.
Yes. When you remove the gravity prematurely by paying up front, the worker's attention drifts. They're no longer working to earn a prize. They're working to erase a debt.
Oh, wow. Working to erase a debt versus working to earn a prize.
Yeah.
That completely reframes the psychological state of the person doing the labor.
It is a radical shift in mindset. Think about it.
Yeah.
Working toward a prize is an offensive maneuver.
You're on the attack.
Right. You're striving, you're ambitious, you're trying to impress the client so you can secure the release of those funds. You care about the corners, the finish, the final polish of the work.
Because it reflects on the prize.
Exactly. But working to erase a debt is a defensive maneuver.
Defensive.
Yes. You already have the money, so the labor itself feels like a penalty you have to pay. The motivation shifts to simply relieving the discomfort of this lingering obligation hanging over your head.
You are literally just going through the motions to get it off your plate.
And psychologically, defensive work rarely produces the same quality of craftsmanship.
It's just about compliance at that point.
Exactly. The worker will do the bare minimum required to technically fulfill the contract so they could just move on.
The soul of the labor is gone.
Completely absent.
Yeah.
Because the standard of excellence is no longer tied to the release of the reward. You have essentially turned a compelling opportunity into a heavy burden for them.
It is truly remarkable how deep the architecture of human behavior goes within just one single sentence.
It's profound.
I mean, we started with the literal translation of an Arabic proverb, and it has opened up this massive conversation about neurobiology, venture capital, and the mechanics of motivation.
Right.
We have explored how handing over the reward too early doesn't just alter the timeline. It bypasses the biological drive of anticipation.
A dopamine hit.
Exactly. And we've seen how retrospective gratitude completely fails to replace forward-facing incentive when the work actually gets difficult.
Because gratitude looks back and labor looks forward.
So well put. And we've unpacked how the unpaid wage serves as the gravity that keeps a worker anchored to quality, ensuring they strive for a prize rather than defensively attempting to erase a debt.
It is a profound reminder that economic exchanges cannot be separated from human psychology.
They are totally intertwined.
Completely. The timing of an exchange fundamentally dictates the reality of the work itself. Whether you are managing a complex corporate merger, hiring a freelancer, or structuring a massive investment, the underlying machinery of human motivation remains astonishingly consistent.
You cannot bypass the journey without invalidating the destination.
Exactly.
Which brings us to a final, slightly provocative thought to leave you with today.
Oh, I love these.
We have spent this entire deep dive discussing the external transaction, right? How paying someone else in advance destroys their incentive.
Right.
How handing over the money alters their brain chemistry and shifts their mindset from offensive striving to defensive obligation. But what happens when we apply this ancient wisdom internally?
Oh, turning the proverb inward on our own goals.
Exactly. Consider a major personal milestone you are striving for.
Okay.
Maybe you are trying to write a novel, launch a new business, or complete a demanding physical challenge like running a marathon.
Sure.
We often look for ways to motivate ourselves during the grueling middle phases of these projects, the messy middle. But what happens if you decide to reward yourself before the finish line is actually crossed?
Oh, wow. The psychological trapdoor opens inside your own mind.
Right. If paying a wage up front invalidates the work of another person, does celebrating your own success too early invalidate your personal effort?
That is a fascinating question.
If you buy yourself the celebratory dinner, take the victory lap, or broadcast your success to your peers before the hard reality of the work is actually complete, do you inadvertently shut off your own dopamine drive?
You might just unanchor your own gravity.
It is really worth asking if buying the prize before you run the race shatters your own internal scale, turning your passion project into an unfulfilling debt you owe to yourself.
Something to really think about.
Absolutely. Thank you for bringing such an incredibly concise but endlessly layered piece of knowledge to the table today. We will catch you on the next deep dive.